to the cloud. That's recording, and I press record on that one, which is my backup. And then we go to more, live on Facebook. It's going to ask me to log in. I'll do Laidlaw early, and then people kind of get upset. Share on your timeline.
I think I've not watched it back and I can barely remember it, so I best to see my performance.
When it comes on, we'll have to if you mute your mics,
Yep.
and then you'll not show up during it.
I'm just wanting to check. So if I press this, I'm going to keep talking just now.
There you go. That
What was it? What did you say about my penis?
Nothing I haven't said to your face, mate.
It's true.
Let's just make sure that's
but
not
which
too
face?
loud. That's fine there. There we go. Facebook.
See, that poster there's a Batman poster with Two-Face on it. It's like a holograph one. So, like, depending on the lighting, you've got Batman, the Joker, or Two-Face.
It looks like just a really, really artsy, plain black picture, mate.
Oh, it's fucking dynamite. I got it for free. Like, I went to this preview screening.
Live.
15 quid, 2 days before it came out, and they gave us that for free. Aidan Moffat for Arab Strap was at it.
Oh, nice. You can't see my pictures that are in the house. We've got a Howl's Moving Castle cinema poster that's just kind of over there.
I had to move. I had Zach Wilde. See where Bruce Springsteen is there?
Yeah.
I had a signed picture of Zach Wilde.
Nice.
The sun was fucking like wiping out the autograph. So I've had to move it.
Had to move it.
Aye. Even though it looks like he wrote Ian, it looks like Ian K rather than H. It's like, what the fuck?
He was probably pissed, mate.
He doesn't drink anymore. I don't think.
Probably not, actually.
I think he was like, I'm going to die soon if I keep fucking doing this.
Standard.
Right, we're live. It's setting up my meeting for Facebook Live, so I've then got to go to my wee Facebook app on here. This is all going swimmingly. Right, I can just see my Facebook page. I'm assuming it says now, the meeting has now streaming live on Facebook. Well, there we go. Hello, folks. It tells us we're streaming live on Facebook. Hopefully we are. We'll just double check to make sure everything is going as it should be. There's about a 20-second delay. Look, there we are. We're there. We are live. 25 seconds ago, according to this. Let's see if it holds for a little bit because it didn't before. Oh, hang on. That's me talking 20 seconds ago. It's like going back to the future. This is how you time travel. You live stream yourself on Facebook. Yeah. So let's have a look. More options. We are live on the on our Facebook page now. We're just going to try and make sure that this is all working lovely as it should be. Just go on there. Group. There we go. That should be working now. There you go. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast. We're live. Here we go. I'm going to start because we still record it for the podcast, so this is a little bit of a pre-ramble. Hello, everybody. We have got a quite an exciting podcast tonight, quite a long one, plenty to talk about. So we're going to launch. We'll start and then we'll just launch into it. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast with me, Cammy Black, brought to you by the Scottish Rugby blog, of course. Joining me this evening, we have John Anderson.
Hi there, folks.
And from behind the mask, it's the Unabomber. No, it's not. It's who's that man behind the mask there? It says Ian Hay, but can we be sure? What have you done to your face, Ian?
Hello, I've shaved. And it looks wrong. It's all despicable.
I thought you've not got the coronas, have you?
No, I ain't got no coronas. Although
I ain't got no coronas.
You said Back to the Future, look from here.
Oh, very good.
There you go. That wasn't even planned.
That will make no sense to anybody listening to the podcast because
right.
we spoke about the Back to the Future before. There you go. Oh my God, it's hideous.
Put it away. Why do they stare?
It brings out a wee bit more of your skin tone, Ian. Sort of gives you a sort of translucent glow
That's always what I look like.
with like a slight hint of kind of definition. I think it's a good look, mate.
I'm whiter than your door.
We only recently painted those doors, so that explains a lot. But
is this kind of like after last week where you thought you looked too white, you thought if you shaved your beard off, it would help the contrast? Is that the idea?
No, but I have this kind of weird nervous habit where I pick at it. Like, did you do this, John? Did you like pick at your beard hairs and go, "Ooh, look at that one"? No, that's just me.
I'm pretty experienced on the old beard hair front. I've trained myself.
Yeah, I was starting to get it was getting patchy, so I thought I'd just take it back to 0 and start again, back to formula.
Owl farming.
Yeah. So we this is in preparation for our big club dinner. We're doing these live podcasts. We might continue next season. We may continue with these because they've been quite good fun. We quite enjoy seeing each other, and it's no hassle. All we do is we press a button and it goes live on Facebook. So it's been quite a lot of fun for us to do it. The big club dinner, everyone, don't forget that is on Friday the 24th of July at 8:30 p.m. You can find the event on our Facebook page, Scottish Rugby Blog. You can find details on scottishrugbyblog.co.uk. We've got a lot of exciting speakers lined up. I have received this week Scott Hastings' speech, which is very good. And on Tuesday, yesterday morning, as we record this, I spoke with and recorded Dougie Donnelly's speech. And let me tell you, it is everything you can expect of a speech from Dougie Donnelly and then some.
Is there plugs for furniture stores?
No, sadly not. No, we didn't get on to that. No, yeah. But there's innuendo, you'll laugh, you'll cry, and delivered with his his usual warmth and charm.
Okay,
but,
so is he the one that's going to be doing the slightly inappropriate speech that seems to happen at rugby club dinners then? I thought it was going to be me. Oh, good stuff.
No, well, hopefully that won't happen, because this is part of the reason why, one, I chose very carefully who I asked to do the speeches, and also we're pre-recording them, so I can vet them beforehand and make sure nobody says anything out of sorts. On the night we'll be live, so control the new lot is a different matter.
You forgot the wild card here.
We of course will be the top table during the big dinner. I've got plans now. You may remember, I think it was a few podcasts ago, we were talking about Dougie Donnelly's quiz show, Shammy Dab.
Yes, we were. Yes,
we are going to play Shammy Dab. We're going to have some rounds. I've taken the details of Wikipedia because there's no episodes exist on YouTube. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to play rounds of Shammy Dab in between the speeches.
Did Dougie not have any in his personal archive?
I was going to say,
I should have asked him. No, I only came up with that this afternoon that we were going to do that. So, I was trying to think of what we could do in between the speeches.
Call him back, man.
I've got his email address. I've got his Zoom address.
Yeah. He's a besties now, mate. Just hook him up.
So we thought this episode we're going to do a bit of news. We are going to go back and do a bit more YouTubing, just because it was quite good fun last week, and we need to have practice with sharing screens. And then we're going to do our do some hands in the ruck as well. And I think we've got one Where's Dougie Donnelly as well. Speaking of Dougie Donnelly, we have had a submission via Twitter this week. So the first big bit of news this week is that Mr. Greig Laidlaw has finally announced where he's off to, and he's off to, Ian, can you remember the name of the team he's off to? Is NTT?
Oh man, I've just deleted I closed the tab down just there. They're based in Ichikawa City.
They are, which is
NTT Shining Arcs.
That's it, NTT
that's the one.
Shining Arcs. So he announced that this week. We were very fortunate enough to manage to grab an interview with him. So Ian spoke to Greig on Monday. We have got a bit of an interview with him. So we'll be back at the other end of this. I hope you enjoy it. Let's see if it works. Ian, did you say you can't hear anything?
Yes, I did.
John, can you hear anything?
No, I cannot.
There you go. The technology doesn't work. Right. I'm going to stop the share there, right? Sorry about that, folks. It's just why we're doing this now, isn't it? And not on the big club dinner. So we'll start that again. We've probably had people in the comments on Facebook saying there's no sound.
I was trying to be dead good and stay on mute and everything.
I know you were being really good. Do you know what the problem is? It's because I didn't click on the button that says share
Share audio.
Share computer sound. So we're going to try this again.
Right.
Get yourself on mute, Ian.
Folks. Oh, well, no. Right, hold on.
Right. So let's see. If one of you could nod furiously, if you can hear this, we'll be away.
We'll go for it.
So here we go. We'll try again with our Greig Laidlaw interview.
All right, well, folks, I have the distinct pleasure now of being joined by Mr. Greig Laidlaw, former Scotland captain, 76 caps, 714 points. It's been quite a career for you, Greg, and now today you've announced that you're moving to Japan to join the NTT Shining Arcs. Could you tell us what was your sort of motivation behind that decision?
I think, first and foremost, it's an excellent opportunity for me to continue my rugby career, essentially, and certainly a new part of the world for one, probably for rugby, and then two, for myself. I just felt it was an excellent opportunity to go and experience something a bit different and test myself somewhere else.
Yeah. When you were in Japan for the World Cup, you seemed to be quite popular amongst the fans there. Why do you think that was? With all respect meant, of course. Do you think it's maybe to do with, I thought maybe that your 2016 match-winning performance against them, maybe they respected that. But, I mean, what was that like for you? Because I don't imagine you've ever been mobbed like that before.
Yeah, it was pretty surreal, to be honest. I think a lot of it came from the 2015 Rugby World Cup. When we played against Japan down at Kingsholm, because Japan had played against South Africa in the game before, and obviously they beat South Africa, and the next game was against us. So I can't remember the numbers, but a large amount of people watched the game on TV in Japan. I was captain of Scotland, I was kicking, and I played, not too bad. So I think off the back of that, I seemed to pick up a fairly big following, and then 2016 I think just helped.
Okay. At the Shining Arcs, how long's your contract going to be there? Is it a couple of years or just the one?
I've signed for 2 seasons, yeah.
2 seasons, yeah. Was there any other overtures from the Scottish Rugby Union to come back here, or was it just, did you think I'd rather keep playing and learn something new, learn a new culture and what have you?
I was pretty fortunate that I had a couple of different options throughout the world, but the Shining Arcs, they came at me, and I just felt that with their organisation, how they sort of wanted me for my experience to go over there, and I just felt, in a rugby career and like any sporting career, you only get one chance at it, and if I didn't take the chance this time around, it would have passed me by. So it was almost too good an opportunity.
Yeah, they've also announced they've signed Australian flanker Liam Gill and also Anaru Rangi, the Kiwi hooker. I've also looked at the squad. They've got some really good players there, like Christian Lealiafano. Are you looking forward to playing with guys of that calibre?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's one of the great things about travelling, going to different clubs and testing yourself but you also get to play with really good players in and around you as well. And I've seen the players they announced this morning alongside my announcement as well, which is awesome. Liam Gill, I think, just finished up in France as well with Lyon. So he's heading over there now. So yeah, it'll be excellent. And I think certainly through my experience from playing in France and probably a little bit in Gloucester is, the foreign or certainly the guys that don't come from that part of the world tend to look after each other. And so I'm looking forward to getting over there and meeting the foreign group of players.
Obviously, playing in England and France, it's quite a sort of forward-dominated game. What do you think the playing style will be like in Japan? Do you think it'll be a bit more open, or? Yeah,
definitely. It'll be a lot more open. They'll try and play probably a slightly more New Zealand type-based game. It's quick, it's fast, it's trying to get some offloads into the game and stuff like that. So, and I think with some of the new rules that are coming into the game as well, it should suit the style of play. So yeah, I'm looking forward to to getting out there when I can and becoming part of the culture and the squad at NTT.
Okay, you're a younger man than me, but obviously after the 2 seasons are up, it's but you looking to. Is this going to be your last playing contract, do you think? And then what's your plans after that? Do you have anything in mind, or are you just going to sort of play it by ear?
Oh, I think it'll probably be my last playing contract, I would imagine, for sure. Time waits for no man, and I'm certainly no different. So, we'll certainly get over there, do my couple of seasons, then we'll see where I'm at in the long term. And I'm pretty passionate about helping rugby in Scotland for sure, and certainly being involved somewhere. When I come back to Scotland, that would probably be the grand plan at the moment. I do have another few things going on off the field, which is really really important. So I'll just tick away with a few things off the field as well, just in case, once you spend a long time in the game, sometimes it might be not be a bad option to have a couple of different things on the go.
Do you want to divulge anything there, or is that the obvious top secret?
They're certainly not top secret, but I work with my management company really closely with Red Sky Management. And they're big on like a double career track. They call it, alongside your sport and whatever that chosen sport is for that individual, and they always try and run something alongside it. So I'm interested in business, I guess. I'm doing a couple of things with Savills at the minute, just sort of learning a little bit about how they operate. I'm involved in a restaurant as well called Mac and Wild, which is a couple of Scottish guys started up down in London, and we've got a place up north as well. So I've got a couple of different things on the go, and I'll probably start to hone in on what I'm going to exactly do in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, if we must reflect back to the Japan World Cup, obviously not the best of times. There was a few players afterwards that said they felt that it was quite a stressful sort of camp and experience. How did you find the whole thing, other than the constantly being mobbed by fans?
Well, international rugby, it's tough. It can be quite stressful. So that's probably no surprise. But yeah, it's disappointing. Obviously, from a Scottish perspective, I think we probably underperformed. We certainly underperformed in definitely the Ireland game first and foremost, and put ourselves under big pressure, and probably the seeds were sown then a little bit, to be honest. So it was a pretty tough trip, tough competition for us, and but credit to Japan. They played well, and we never defended well enough in that last game.
Yeah, to be fair, in that Japan game, we've looked at the stats. Apparently, they made no errors at all, so it was quite a remarkable performance from them. Had you made your mind up to retire from the international scene before you headed out there, or was it a sort of see how you feel afterwards kind of a deal?
Yeah, I'd pretty much decided in my head. I think that there was going to be my last campaign with Scotland and probably my last trip. And again, as I sort of touched on earlier, time waits for nobody, and I'm no different. I think it just felt like the right time, in my opinion, to move on and let the young boys come through and try and take it forward. So it's been a great time and great part of my life, and memories I'll have for a lifetime. And but it's now on to another group of players that hopefully they can go forward with the jersey.
With regards to that number 9 jersey, obviously there's Ali Price and George Horn kind of battling it out for the Warriors and Scotland starting spot. Pyrgos is there as well as a backup. Who do you think is the right man to lead Scotland forward, taking over, filling in your boots?
Well, I think probably Ali's in the best position at the moment, because he's probably slightly more of an all-rounder in terms of that controlling aspect that you need at international rugby as well. And but certainly George Horn, somebody that's obviously going to be there for the next number of years, and he's an exciting rugby player and an exciting halfback with a lot of speed and skills. And so it's going to be good. Two slightly different players. So I think that's always a good mix. Obviously you got one star and one on the bench, so to have that slightly different mix of halfback is a good one.
Okay, there's that now sort of famous meme of Graham Love made of you with Adam Hastings and Finn Russell, sort of you as the father sort of figure reining them in. Obviously Finn Russell's quite a sort of maverick kind of guy. Who's your favourite 10 partner that you've ever played with? You played with him quite a few times for Scotland. Was it something like 34?
Yes, I think it was 34. It was, I think it was a Scottish record actually. So it was, it was very nice to get that with Finn, and I really enjoyed playing with Finn. Yeah, he's just got excellent skill sets, excellent rugby player, and I think he's probably the best attacking 10 going around, to be honest. So he's an excellent talent, and certainly I want to see him back in a Scotland jersey, and as well along with Scotland. But having said that, Adam's a good player too. I think he done well in the Six Nations, and he showed that he can probably control Test matches as well. So it's healthy for that competition, and I think if needs must, I think something, because Finn's such a good rugby player, he could push out to maybe 12 as well, and again that gives Scotland a different option, not necessarily start there, but he could move out there later on in games, and gives the team a slightly different dynamic.
Yourself and Finn are obviously two of the sort of more recent Scotsmen to have won down at Twickenham when you were playing with the Barbarians. One question we always like to ask is if you were playing with the Babas, what socks would you wear? But having done it yourself, what socks were you wearing?
I wore my Jed Forest socks.
Jed Forest. Yep.
Sure did.
Yep. So what's the build up to the Babas camp like? Because you were only together were you even together for a whole week?
Yeah, just under the week. It's excellent. I think it's just such a unique opportunity and a unique week, I guess, in the life of a now professional rugby players, because you don't get the weeks at all if you're in a big Test match week. Obviously, it's certainly not like a Barbarians week when you get out, you get to have a few beers and basically relax, and you don't really go in with a game plan. You just go out there and throw the ball around and see what happens. So it was an awesome week, and again, that's part of the fun, is getting to play with some brilliant players.
Yeah, Semi Randrada in that game was, as well as Finn, they were sort of sensational. Who do you think's the best player that you've played with and then against?
It's a question I get asked quite a lot. I think the best player I probably played against would be Dan Carter. He's world class. He just, everything he'd done, I think he had it all. He could pass, kick, run, tackle. He had great vision, and he was one of the players. He always had time on the ball. And I think the best player I probably played with is a guy called Iso Toyava, who played with me down in Clermont. He's an All Black as well. He was capped really young for the All Blacks, and he probably would have had a few more caps if his body had held up. But he's certainly playing with him down in Clermont was brilliant. And again, he was one of these players who just seemed to have really a lot of time on the ball when sometimes he didn't.
So what is it you think that, like the All Blacks, they just seem to have a conveyor belt of talent? It's obviously you've played with a few guys from New Zealand. What is it you think that sort of separates them from the rest of the world? Because they're a small country, but the same size as Scotland. But obviously, sort of rugby's ingrained in their DNA. So, do you think is there anything you've picked up from them, or anything that they've mentioned to you, which makes you think this is why they are so far ahead of everyone?
I think the history of the All Blacks, I think that helps a lot, because then the players are pushing so hard to make themselves the best players they can be to try and make the All Blacks. I think that in itself is such a powerful thing, because you need to be the best of the best to play for the All Blacks. So I think that really helps. I think anytime I've played with All Blacks or played against them, that they always have a real good skill set in terms of just their skill errors. They're pretty much zero. And I think they get that right throughout the pitch. Whether that's a props, second rows, they can all play the ball, they can all read the game, and I think that's just how they get brought up, understanding the game in their country, and I guess the attitude to try and play the game.
Okay, obviously you're a busy man, Greg, so I'll be quick with the last couple. Would you rather have a flake or a twirl?
Flake.
Okay, and as well as with the the Japanese fans, you seem to be a bit of a dark horse favourite amongst the ladies. A couple of them are listeners to the podcast. So if you could you just send out a wee shout out to Rhiannon and Yvonne for us, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Hi, Rhiannon and Yvonne. I hope you guys are well.
Yeah, cool. You might have restraining orders against them already. I'm not too sure, to be honest. No, but that's great, Greg. Actually, is it Greg or Greig? We've been arguing about this.
Just Greg.
Just Greg. I thought as much, but some people have been saying otherwise. Look, Greg, thank you very, very much for joining me here. That's been fantastic. You enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy your time in Japan.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Cheers.
Bye.
So there we go. Mr. Greg.
Wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, to be honest.
It was good. I enjoyed that.
Well done, Ian.
Couple of big takeaways. One is Greg is a fully paid up member of the Cats at a Rave Club.
Absolutely. Rightly so.
And who wouldn't be?
I know. Yeah, VIP platinum access for that guy.
I know, but it's interesting, isn't it, that that's obviously talked about within camp. That I think this, it happened once, I think, in the Fiji match. I don't think it's happened again. I think Adam Hastings came on at full back at Twickenham.
Yep.
And I think he's come on full back in during the World Cup in one of the games. I can't remember which one it was. But again, I think it's obviously that is seen as a viable option then, if the way he was talking about it. So that's quite an interesting thing. The other thing is obviously, I mean, the just obviously how much he enjoys playing with Finney, and you could really pick up on that.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't enjoy playing with somebody like Finn Russell? Hopefully we'll see him back in the Scotland shirt soon. But he's a sort of once in a generation player. I mean, I can't think, through my lifetime, you've had like say Chalmers. Chalmers obviously a great player, but maybe a sort of more controlling, kicking 10 in a sort of O'Gara-ish mould. Whereas Finn, we know what he's capable of. Like he said, he's probably the best attacking 10 in the world. So, it's for someone like Greg, Greg as well, obviously having played Standoff a couple of times when he had to get shifted there to accommodate Mike Blair, who is a wonderful player. To have somebody who is that mercurially talented, it must be tons of fun to just go, right, I'm going to launch the ball at him and then see what happens. Yeah.
And then John, I mean, he's obviously it came out in Gav Harper's article today that there'd been some contact with Danny Wilson at Glasgow, but he's probably looking at, he's not going to be first or second choice or even third choice in Glasgow, so that didn't really seem like it'd be much of an option. But obviously keen to, when he's done it all now, hasn't he, Greg? He's done Lions, Barbars, Edinburgh, Scotland. So time to go and try rugby in a different country, a different continent.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to add to that as well. As you say, he's done England, he's done France, he's now done Japan. Probably the only thing he's not done is Southern Hemisphere, but so few players from the Northern Hemisphere go over and play Super Rugby. So, no, he's covered a lot of bases, and it's no surprise really that there would be tentative talks from Glasgow. There was chat about obviously an experienced scrum half being required to come in as maybe third choice, but in some ways, Jamie Dobby's development last season was quite impressive, obviously, and you've still got George Horn and Ali Price who would be your first choices. So I'm kind of glad I've made my feelings clear on. I don't think Greig Laidlaw's game would naturally suit Glasgow anyway, even accounting for any changes that Mr. Wilson may make. But I'm kind of glad for him that he's going away, and the stuff in Japan was obviously very exciting for him. So it's a great opportunity. It'll be really good. It's good to see Scotland being represented in different countries as well, and one of our best players over the last wee while going over and hopefully doing well over there.
No, the other thing, did you guys see the post from the Shining Arcs about how to pronounce the names of the players that are coming over?
It was like
So-
proper heavy English, like Greig Laidlaw.
So it's Grey Ray Draw for Greig Laidlaw, Liam Gill for Liam Gill, and then Anal Run
I know, what?
for Anaru Rangi.
Another raggy.
Oh
Yeah.
dear.
So there we go. But
That's
I mean,
Google
to be fair-
Translate for
to be
you.
fair, I did look it up, and apparently if for Japanese people that don't speak English as a first language and have been taught it, then the R and the L sound very similar. They can pronounce them if they with practice, but it's so you can understand why they've done it. It's fairly straightforward for it's Mr. Greig anyway. I don't know why they've not just written down Mr. Greig, because that's what he was known as during the
Just
World
have
Cup.
that in the back of his shirt. Just Mr. Greg.
Greg Zilla.
Gregzilla.
If anyone's interested in a Gregzilla t-shirt, I believe Graham Love has them on his Redbubble store.
Yep, and face masks.
And face masks. That's what
very
everyone
topical.
wants a Greig Laidlaw face mask.
I was trying to get a Boba Fett one, but it was going to take 8 days for delivery. I was no.
It's ridiculous. Well, they make the Redbubble ones are made in the States. We've got our Redbubble store. So they're taking about 2 weeks to turn up and about 15. It costs more to post them than it does to actually to actually buy them. The other thing that's come out just today, I don't know if either of you seen this, is John Barclay's interview on the offside line.
Yes. Yes,
Which is very interesting in terms of, I mean, that's twice now that, I mean, Matt, that's 2 players now who've left Edinburgh who are talking about a lack of communication with the coaches. And for all we hear about, Cockers is, he's a player's coach and they all love him and they all want to play for him and his communication's great. That's now 2 players who've come out and effectively said, we didn't have any communication from the club. And Cockers, Cockerell's playing a part in that. I think Matt Scott said he went to him and said, please, I'll play for anything, I'll take a pay cut, whatever you've got left in the budget. And Cockerell, had a role to play in finding him somewhere at Leicester. But Barclay effectively has come out today and said he was cut out of the leadership team group and he was essentially kind of sidelined by the, given the clear indication you're not playing anymore, which is not a great indictment of the way things are going at Edinburgh at the minute, is it?
No, well, thank you for urinating on my chips, Cammy, because that was my.
Is that your hands in the rock?
That was my backup hands in a rock.
Second hands in the rock.
It's just like Cammy's just going for it here. Yeah, no, it's
There's not
remarkable.
much going on at the minute, Ian. So I've got to start with you somehow.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, for a guy like John Barclay is one of the sort of canniest operators that we've seen. Was he 17 when he got first called up into a Scotland camp? Ridiculously good player, ridiculously smart player, and somebody who's not afraid to speak his mind.
To his cost, to be fair, to his cost, which is the reason why he hasn't got as many caps as he should have.
Well, allegedly so. He says that wasn't the issue, but I think that maybe there is a semblance of truth in that. But no, like you said, I think for him not to be included in a leadership group when he is, he's captain Scotland, he captained the Scarlets, and if you talk to a Scarlets fan, a lot of them say he's, the best import player that they've ever had, and to not try and mine that sort of knowledge that he has, I think is bordering on criminal, basically. I mean, he's a fantastic player. And what is he now? Is he 30? He'll be 34 this year.
Yep.
But in an article, he said, he felt the last couple of years he'd been playing his best rugby until obviously that horrendous Achilles injury at Scotstoun, which I was privy to, and it's everyone in Scotstoun Stadium was on their feet applauding him off, because nobody likes to see anyone going off injured, and particularly not somebody like that guy who has been sort of a Glasgow, maybe legends, maybe too strong a word, but a guy who's bled and done everything he can for Scotland and Glasgow, and to just sort of cut him out, it's quite concerning, and it echoes as well the some of the things we heard about Finn Russell. I mean, this international class, top class player, guy with a lot of knowledge, and then the whole Boozegate thing happened, and one of the things was that apparently he was cut out of leadership groups. So it's a wee bit worrying, I think.
Yeah, and he's prime candidate for the you know, the John Barkley to me is a prime candidate for the Al Kellogg role of, you know, shift him upstairs. You know, why is he not being? He said in the interview, he's talking about he's not entirely sure that coaching fits with what he wants to do because he's not. I think he's kind of a bit tired of the cycle of the of rugby and the way that it goes. But he's certainly talking about, you know, wanting to get, you know, setting up his own leadership consultancy business, you know, working with guys to develop their skills. So even not coaching, you would think there'd be a role in Scottish rugby for someone like John Barkley, John.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was very telling when he became captain. When obviously Laidlaw was injured and Barkley took over, and we all kind of saw it at the time as the final step in the recovery of John Barkley from the he who shall not be named years through to the end to become captain. But what I think struck everyone at the time was just how articulate he was and how he was just a very different presence. Very, we saw him in press interviews afterwards. He was just this wonderfully articulate, calming presence, and you can tell how passionate he is about rugby. He's not a guy who's going to stand, kind of like an Al Kellogg sort of style guy who's going to stand there and shout about how good rugby is. He does it in a much more subtle way that we need that to appeal to a certain type of person as well. You know, the Blood and Thunder Al Kellogg approach isn't going to reach a lot of young kids out there. So having this world-class athlete who is very, very down to earth, very kind of approachable as well, I think it would be a massive loss for Scottish rugby if they don't encourage him into some role within the team, and particularly I think we always overlook the experience that players like Barkley have. You know, as you rightly said, Ian, he came into the squad at 17. Professional sport, if you look at it across the piece, professional sports people are getting younger. And Barkley at the time was a bit of an anomaly. You know, you don't see many people coming through in their late teens to become professional sports people. This will become more of the norm, especially in a highly attritional game like rugby. So the experience that he can pass, as I was there, age 17, playing international rugby, I know how daunting it is. I was a kid. That experience, you can't buy that. You can't go to the open market and get a coach that can teach these kids about that. And if we let that go, to repeat Ian's phrase, that's criminal. And there'll be a lot of questions asked if that does happen.
You think, sorry if Cammy's going to mention something there, but I mean, you think about, Matt Smith, who same position as him.
Yep.
If you if John Barkley maybe had a chance to speak to him and just say, look, mate, I know you're probably getting a bit stressed out about stuff, and Matt Smith's not had these injury problems to share. You know what I mean? Matt Smith was a very, very, very talented player.
Yep.
And it's really upsetting to lose him. I mean, obviously, if it's not for him, that's fine, but sometimes you worry about I've seen this again popping up somewhere else, I can't remember, but sort of, the psychological aspect of rugby and the fact that Scotland don't have a full-time psychological, sort of mental health coach or whatever.
Yep.
And the All Blacks do. And Jason O'Halloran has been, saying that for ages. If we need to keep, there's not a lot of Scottish rugby players. There's not a lot of people who are potentially great players. And you cannot just throw away people who have that kind of knowledge of, that depth of knowledge, not only in the game, but in the sort of stressful situations like long-term injuries and what have you. The man should be brought in to the Scottish rugby coaching fold or whatever, if he can be, as soon as possible. Obviously, he's got his media commitments now, which he's very, very good at. He'd be a great loss if we don't try and get him involved. If he wants to, obviously, maybe he doesn't. But
as Cammy was saying, if he's looking at leadership consultancy or setting up his own business and leadership, that's a really good opportunity as well. We saw I think it was in the press today, Greig Laidlaw again talking about, Scotland might be, we could possibly win the Six Nations in a couple of years' time, or 2 to 3 years' time. But a lot of that's going to come down to leadership, and we're losing. We are in that, and you saw it in the Six Nations. We're in a period of transition where we've got lots of leaders on the park, but they've not been in leadership roles. And having guys like Barclay around, even if he's in the media, he's still at the stadiums. He's still there. The ability for a Stuart Hogg to have a wee word with John Barclay, it does happen. We see these things happening. If you're behind the scenes at Murrayfield, you will see players talking to former colleagues, press, whatever, and those little conversations can really add value. And again, I think there is an opportunity to balance up that media commitment and any other aspirations he has regarding kind of businesses or leadership with our role in Scottish rugby. And the mental health aspect is a really interesting one. He again has been through everything that Scottish rugby could throw at him. He's lost a ton of games. He's fell out with coaches. He's been unceremoniously dumped by both pro clubs now. So he's done it all. We just can't lose that.
I think you're right. I think it's the knowledge retention, isn't it?
Handsome as well.
I know. It's that retention, is it, of knowledge that we've never really had in Scottish rugby. The idea of these guys know how to get out of tight holes, and they can talk to the next generation about what they learned from the defeats.
Yeah. And
if we never learn from the defeats, then we're just going to keep making the same mistakes year in, year out, every single tournament. And every time somebody moves on, you lose that knowledge to pass on. We've been here before, we've been under pressure, and we've either come out of it and this is what we've done, or we haven't come out of it because we made the same mistakes you're now proposing to make behind the posts. That needs to be held on to. I mean, there was an interview I think I read with John Rutherford saying that he'd been asked by Gregor Townsend to speak to Finn Russell. I think Finn Russell's talked about this and said he found it really useful. And John Rutherford said, I don't know what I can tell him about playing rugby now, but I think it's not about it's technical stuff. It's more telling the stories of, John Rutherford played in successful Scotland teams, and having somebody tell players now what it's like to be playing in a successful Scotland team and mentally what made those teams successful has got to be of value. And we can't just keep losing players in the way that we lose them, in the way of just, like I said, like leaving them to feel like they've been cast adrift. Fine, John Barclay doesn't get a contract, but doesn't feel to me in the same as the Matt Smith, the Matt Scott thing, where there was some assistance. Sounds like it was quite personal, a personal touch from Richard Cockrell to find him a contract at Leicester. John Barclay's talking about finding a club within a reasonable commute. I think Newcastle Falcons have probably got a budget to have someone like John Barclay on their team. Do you know what I mean? And probably value having him as well. He might sail at a push. But it's not, but there's no, it doesn't feel like it's been, I know it's, everyone talks about being unprecedented times, but it doesn't feel like it's been done in a way befitting a Scotland captain.
You're here to that.
We'll move on. I'm going to do your next Hands in the Ruck, Ian. Should we do that?
So just entitled this episode, Ian's Hands in the Ruck.
Ian's Hands in the Ruck. There was news this week.
About stuff.
I know. News this week that you may correct me on this. A community group in Glasgow have done a freedom of information request and got plans for the proposed redevelopment of Scotstoun that was happening with the SRU and Glasgow Council. Am I right in that? I think because Glasgow Council own it.
It's Glasgow Life, which is a sort of offshoot of it's a sort of tribute.
The leisure department.
Aye.
Glasgow Council's leisure department. And obviously Warriors play there. So it's been talked to. It's been fair. The SRU have been fairly open about the need to redevelop Scotstoun and increase the capacity. It's been talked about for years. My understanding of this is this has got nowhere near the council's planning department. This is purely just the SRU and Glasgow Life kicking about some ideas for some plans, getting them drawn up. people are outraged that they're not being consulted on it, but you get consulted during the planning stage. You even get consulted proper pre-planning stage when someone's actually thinking of putting in an application for something major like that. There'd be a pre-application consultation with the public, then it would go in to the planning, and then you get notified, then you get your chance to comment, and then the council considers any comments you have on the plans and transport plans and all of that. This feels massively prematurian, doesn't it?
Oh, just a touch. Oh no, because I've been looking at some, like, the article that came out from West End Today, Glasgow West End Today or something like that. The Freedom of Information Act request comes from a meeting. Now, I've obviously, I've not been able to get hold of every single thing that I've tried. I've looked on the internet everywhere. What they're basically moaning about is preemptive plans, which stem from meetings in 2018. And one of the biggest things is about the expansion of the North Stand, which is actually where my season ticket is. The North Stand, which looks like for all those of you who watch games live, that's one that looks like a little row of circus tents with a train line running behind it. And it just seems like absolute whinging little NIMBYism. So there's no planning permission being applied. It's just, there was initial chats, but this community council have now sort of declared, Glasgow Life said this and that. Now, the Freedom of Information Act, from what I've got, I actually have the PDF here. They say, we will release more documents once we have them. Well, why didn't you just release them? See, they have the documents. Why did you just come out and make this statement? And it seems to be just a spokesman. One of our friends has looked further into this thing. This person has access to. She's a community councillor herself. Oh, I was trying to not use pronouns. Damn, I've ruined it. They've looked at. They've dealt with that Jordan Hill Community Council before, and they've said they can be just a bit aggressive and whingy. But what I particularly find sort of galling is they said that the traffic congestion will be intolerable. Now, as a person I've had this season ticket at Scotstoun for 7 years. Danes Drive is not a major thoroughfare for the West End of Glasgow. It's a kind of wee offshoot of a street. This suggestion that it's going to make traffic congestion intolerable is absolute nonsense as far as I'm concerned, because we never play at peak times, do we? The only time I've found that those streets have been congested is if I've gone early, and therefore you've just got your Friday evening commuters. I've taken a taxi a few times up to Scotstoun, and the only time you get congestion is if you're going through the Clydeside Expressway, and then you're hitting congestion because that's just because Glasgow's a busy place. The expressway leads on to Dumbarton Road, which takes you out to West, takes you out to Clydebank and all those kind of places. So it's just people commuting. Then they've moaned about how it would affect the allotments. I've tried to look for Victoria Park allotment stuff. I've tried to look at images for where it's stationed, what have you, and the size of it, and how the North Stand expansion would affect their growing ability. I mean, when it's Scotland, we're not going to get a lot of sun. I had to put the heating on a couple of days ago. It's July.
People have got marrows to look after, Ian. Come on.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should grow more suitable crops. It just sounds like absolute NIMBYism and whinging. That stadium has been there since 1915, right? And I can't remember if it was the 2015 semi-final or if it was the Scarlet semi-final. I was walking from the train station to the bus stop. I can't remember what mode of transport I'd used at that point. And there was genuinely a guy stood near Scotstoun Stadium. He was stood at his window telling people, he was just waiting for somebody to park. Not blocking driveways or anything like that, not being a nuisance, just parking on a street. And he would go out and go, "Sorry, you can't park there. That's residents parking only." Is that the best thing you've got to do with a Friday night? And before any of them moan at me, be but you don't know what it's like. I live in the south side of Glasgow. I live 400 yards away from Hampden Park, right? Parking around here is a nightmare without a major event at Hampden. The problem with Scotstoun is that the public transport is crap, right? Scotstoun Hill train station, all right, it's not too bad. Fairly decent service. But if you take the bus, like the Warriors are, if you've got a Warriors ticket, you get a free bus code to use on first buses. The problem is, afterwards, like I can get a number 6 bus home from Scotstoun. Like it'll take me basically door to door. It takes about an hour and a half, which is a pain. But once at the end of the game, it goes to a one bus per half-hour service. So it's useless. You know, you can finish a game, you walk around at the bus stop, and you're like, I've just missed one, that's me going to have to wait another half hour. Obviously, like, the concept that they said, traffic congestion would be intolerable. Now, as John can probably tell you from Scottish Rugby Forum, people quite have often asked, like, I'm wanting to travel to the Warriors game, where can I park? And 1,000 voices of unison say, you can't park anywhere nearby. No. You're best off using public transport. They just keep moaning about, the traffic will be intolerable. You're not a major thoroughfare. It's not an issue. I've never seen major traffic congestion, even if I was going early on a Friday night. Let's say I was trying to get to the stadium for 6:30. The only congestion is because people are trying to get home, and because they think maybe I can dive either side of Danes Drive, where Scotstoun Stadium is placed. You've got Dumbarton Road and Great Western Road. Those are busy streets and much bigger streets. And most people use them. I just find it NIMBYism, and also what really annoys me is it's myopic and short term, right? They're just looking at like, this is going to affect me. This is going to affect my parking. If the stadium gets expanded, you're looking at obviously there's going to be construction workers in, so that's jobs. And then once this expansion is completed, you're going to need more security staff. There's going to be extra concessions. So it's creating jobs. It's going to create jobs and boost the economy. But all they're worried about, and even the people who are complaining about it, they don't actually say they've got allotments. There's like, it might affect allotments. Obviously, they've said, there's more stuff they need to reveal, but, well, reveal it then. They've got their freedom of information request in. Show us the whole lot. Or are you just whinging for the sake of whinging? And we saw it with Murrayfield as well, the expansion of Mini Murrayfield. People just start complaining about parking.
Have you ever considered being a taxi driver, Ian? Because you've got the knowledge for streets of Glasgow.
Oh man, no, man, I'm a GPS man.
I'm surprised they didn't go to like screen share and start doing an annotated diagram. So Dumbarton Road's here, right, Ken? And then
Ken, I'm not from Ayrshire.
So I was thinking you were going to go more colloquial and sort of get the Kilmarnock listeners engaged.
What's the other option? I mean, because is it Scotstoun then? Scotstoun a bust, or is there do you think there's an option then to go back to kind of ground sharing elsewhere? Now you've got more but more people attending Glasgow games. I know back in the day when you're at where were the games played originally? Were they
Firhill?
Firhill.
There was Hughenden before then, and Firhill, but
Hughenden, Firhill. So I mean, and I know Firhill particularly is probably playing in an empty stadium with one man and his dog watching, but the crowds are bigger now. So is that a realistic prospect to look at? Even Clyde, go and share with Clyde or something. That's 8,000 capacity, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's out the road though. That's quite far out the road. Yeah. That's basically Cumbernauld now, isn't it?
It's quite far out. I think part of the issue with that is that Glasgow have set their stall a lot by Scotstoun's now their home. So it's kind of the way they've brung everything in-house into Scotstoun, which they didn't do it for Hill or elsewhere. I think there is a real desire for Scotstoun to become, a more permanent home for Glasgow, and with that, if they could get the capacity up slightly, that would be good. And it is funny hearing people talking about parking and stuff like that, because you know yourself that you get told constantly, don't drive to games, don't drive to games. And yeah, I agree. The public transport can be a bit difficult at times, and certainly for me, you know, I'm only 20 minutes drive from Scotstoun from my house, and if I was taking public transport, I'm an hour and a half. So you know, it's a good chunk extra time, but you know, if you just time it right, you've got the clubhouse, there's beer. You just got to time it right.
It's not outside the realms of possibility for the club to put something in place as well, because you know we went down on our away trip to Sale, and we had about 20 options of shuttle buses, free shuttle buses from around Manchester. You know, we took the shuttle bus from the Arndale, which is the most bizarre place I've ever been to in the world. But you know, we took the shuttle bus. They had regular shuttle buses going from the shopping centre, but we could have gone to Didsbury and got a shuttle bus. We could have gone to central Manchester and got a shuttle bus. So it can't be beyond the realms of possibility that if Glasgow are going to increase the capacity, like you said, Ian, brings in more money, brings in more funds, to use that money to say, look, if we want to bring more people into the ground, we have to invest in shuttle buses. That's not a big ask, is it?
I mean, you've got Buchanan bus station, which has got something like 50 stands. You know, like you just one, but so current capacity. I think like this was another thing that annoyed me was the article. It said, they're looking to expand the stadium to 14,750, which was never a number mentioned. It was 12,500 to maybe expanding to 15,000 for major games. Like you said, it's not a difficult thing to do. You know, just put a shuttle bus on for people. People can go into the city centre, bang, there you are, over at Scotstoun. You know, it's. But funny you should mention Sale, because I think it was last week, Rock magazine, Rock website, sorry, they'd said the 3 worst stadiums in the UK, and of the 3, 2 of them were Scotstoun and the AJ Bell Stadium, because they're so inaccessible. You know, and this is the West End of Glasgow. Glasgow and Manchester are massive places, right? Fair enough, Sale's a wee bit kind of like sort of outskirty, but Scotstoun's on the way to places like Clydebank. You know, Clydebank's a massive part of Glasgow, but it's poorly serviced. You know, we've seen there's been transport before. I mean, there was a game on a Sunday. I think it was a good few years ago. We were playing Exeter Chiefs, and I was going to get the train home on a Sunday, and on the Sunday they just kept the normal Sunday service on. It's 1 hour. You know, just to get back into Glasgow city centre. Yeah, so it's like there's major public transport issues. Silver Saturday, for example, like that disaster. Trying to get back from Edinburgh that night. You know, I think the SRU have to maybe get a bit more involved with ScotRail or First Bus and say, look, we know there's going to be. I can't understand why ScotRail or First Bus wouldn't be going, tell you what, we're going to see if we actually had a reliable service. We can make so much more money off of this. Or if we just stick another couple of carriages on. I imagine that their profit margin would be far greater if they can say, look, tell you what, here's an easy service. I nearly swore there, sorry. Here's an easy service to get to the stadium. There's another 2,000, fares that we're going to take. But they don't.
I think there's something to be said for the. I think there's been a reticence to kind of commit to providing some service like that purely from a. Glasgow have been at Scotstoun for quite a few years now, but there always has been the chat about it's expand or we need to look at other options, and I think there has been a wee bit of they've tried a few things. They've tried obviously with the buses and stuff like that, but there has been a wee bit of a kind of reluctance to really kind of commit to, get the full weight of the SRU behind you, ScotRail partnership, off we go. There has been a kind of reluctance to do that. I think if there was more commitment to, if we say Scotstoun's going to be expanded to X capacity, and with that comes a renewed lease. Obviously, when the AstroTurf went in, Glasgow Warriors, or the SRU, should I say, were involved in the funding of that. They paid a chunk of that. So, you know, there has to be a willingness probably from the SRU to really engage in that area and say, right, we need to get the services up to scratch. We need to get the bus companies delivering. We need to get the trains more frequent, both at Scotstoun, but also, you know, when you've got Murrayfield and mini Murrayfield, whenever that. Although again, you know, do you really need a service for like 12 people? So. Boom.
Right. That's going in the ledger. That's Sandy gets one back next time he's on.
Sandy gets a free shot next time he's on.
Okay. Well, I was going to say on the other hand, that, you know, getting this all in place would require the SRU to actually pay attention to what's going on in Glasgow.
Oh yes. Now, I'll have you know, Cameron, we have quite a few second rows now. We've got tons of second rows now. The SRU are clearly listening to us.
We've got 4 and Rob Harley.
Rob Harley's 2 men.
Yeah, I was going to say. I saw today that Richie Gray's the tallest ever player.
The tallest ever warrior.
As well.
He's not though. Richie Vernon's taller, just because he is.
Oh, he's just bigger.
Aye, in every way.
We'll move on from there. The other news is that Club Rugby might be back in Scotland in October. There's a long way to go, though. I would say that the SRU have released their roadmap that's been approved by the Scottish Government. The aim is to get competitive club rugby back up and running in Scotland in October. I think there's some suggestion that some local games might be able to be played in September as kind of like warm-ups. It's good, though. I mean, I think it's nice to give an idea that some normality may return. I mean, whether or not we get there and whether or not the roadmap can be easily followed and we don't divert off somewhere into another lockdown if this second wave turns up. But it must be not kind of feel good for the players and those involved in the clubs that there is some idea of when things are going to come back, John.
Yeah, I think absolutely, and I think for a lot of players just now, there'll be a realistic approach to know that, you know, we can say things are going to come back, and obviously, you know, professional sports are a bit different. They're kind of pushing for a lot of professional sport to come back because the amount of money that's involved in that, you know, even just from thinking about the Premier League and the amount of money they've had to pay because they weren't able to, or they were kind of breaching their television deal. They've had to pay out something like 330 million in compensation back to the TV companies. So it's the amount of money involved in professional sports makes it such a priority to get it back. For amateur sport, you're obviously looking more at the kind of social aspect and the mental health aspect. And these are really, really important, but I don't think it will be done, particularly in Scotland, it won't be done at the expense of or at the risk of public health. So I think it's great to see there's a roadmap, and it's great to hear that we might be seeing some club rugby very soon. I would also temper that with, I think it could all go away very quickly as well. And I think everybody will be aware of that.
One interesting thing that's come out of this is the SRU have been very clear that it's not going to be club rugby as we know it. You know, you're not going to count the 2021 season is not going to be, you know, the normal leagues, normal cups. It's going to be something very different. I mean, there's talk about what it looks like. We don't know yet, but there's talk about regionalising it. And to a certain extent, that makes sense with coronavirus. If, you know, the whole, you end up with local lockdowns, you know, why stop games on the West Coast if, say, there's a flare up in Edinburgh? You know, by all means, you know, stop games in Edinburgh, but there's no reason why the rest of the country can't be playing rugby if that's allowed under the rules. It also, I think, longer term is interesting because for years people have been talking about regionalising club rugby in Scotland because from a player point of view, it's much more attractive to someone playing for a club if they know they're not going to be losing an entire day or even an overnight in some cases. You know, you look at Berwick going up to Orkney, that was an overnight, and now probably 2 overnights really. you're there and back in a day. And even you probably most of the time you'll get your evening with back at home with your family if you want it. 'Cause not everybody, a lot of people go to the clubhouse afterwards, but not everybody does. So that's got to be a massive. That's going to be interesting, I think, to see whether that becomes the new normal, which is kind of bandied around, Ian.
Yeah, well, we saw like the recent gallery. They've only just had their there was a sort of specific lockdown imposed on them recently. But also, I spoke to Bill Faulds, who's the president of Falkirk Rugby Club, a few months ago, and he was saying, like you were saying, Orkney's travel expenses for the year are £60,000 a year.
Mm.
It's ridiculous for a small local club to be, to ask them to go down to, say Berwick or whatever. It's a massive ask. But whereas if you get, if you do sort of west, you can also sort of bring back the regional stuff as well. It's a regional selects like what they're doing in New Zealand with the North Free South Island kind of deal. It'll save money for fans. Fans will be more willing to go if they're like, all right, I just need to drive down to Ayr or whatever. There is I think there will be a big benefit to it. Hopefully the games will be very competitive as well, but we'll need to still wait and see, how the virus dies down. We'll see how much movement we can actually make. But yeah, it's going to be a very different landscape. I imagine the cup competition will be scrapped.
It'd be interesting longer term, like you said. It'd be, you just imagine regional leagues, like you said, representative regional sides. Bring back the South, bring back the Caledonia. Have the best players from club rugby going and playing in these representative sides against each other once people are able to travel. And there's a shop window for the Super Six for younger players, and for all the players just a chance to go and play, at a representative level.
That sounded almost like you were talking about what the Super Six was meant to be there, Cammy, for a second.
Almost, John, almost.
Idea of four aligned academies represented by semi-professional teams.
All from Edinburgh.
All from Edinburgh. As I was going to ask you, Ian, what you thought, who would win the East versus West, but with the Super Six, obviously, it's not really. I mean, we've got Ayr, and I mean, we would have to claim the Borders clubs for our own, wouldn't we?
I think given the relationship between the Borders clubs and Edinburgh, I think they'd probably quite happily. I don't think you'd have to get them to all agree to that first, but I think you probably have an easier job persuading Edinburgh to align with Glasgow than you would do to align with Edinburgh.
Let's see. I don't know if you saw it, guys, but I posted Glasgow Hawks. It was a very, very long post Glasgow Hawks put up, and they've managed to. Andy Hill, the head coach there, he's managed to get a second 15 built up.
That's fantastic.
They're going to have a second 15, which is good. I mean, the Hawks they've brought through a number of internationals. Guys like recent guys like Xander Fagerson, Scott Cummings, George Horn. Although I do remember, who was it? Alistair, one of the presidents there. He was quite disparaging about Lilia Masanga. He was like, he just didn't look interested when he came here for a training session. But the more local talent you get, the better. And I think if you've got a connection to City, this thing like you look at the Glasgow Warriors team, a lot of them are not Glasgow or West people. The Horn brothers, they're from Howe of Fife. And so the more interest we can get in getting people playing, just get people playing, and then see where we go from there. But obviously, what with the issues we've got now, when are we actually going to start playing again?
Yeah, Glasgow Hawks was one of the first places I played away that had running hot water.
Sometimes you get that Murrayfield.
Running water.
The changing rooms were palaces. It was unbelievable.
We could turn this into the Four Yorkshiremen sketch from Monty Python.
Yeah.
Running hot water. You had running water. When I played, you had to take a shower in a tub at the back.
You had to bring your own sponge.
I remember up at, I think it was Lanark, had, and if anybody's watching or listening from Lanark, hi, how yous doing? But they'd set up, so their showers weren't bad, but they'd set up the kind of the wheelie bin style ice buckets for their players, and it was like the most brutal looking things you've seen. These buckets, like I think they stole them from a council estate or something, and then just slapped a bunch of ice in them. They were absolutely horrendous. They were manky, and they were horrendous.
Probably catch Legionnaire's disease from going in.
I do. All sorts of illnesses were taking place in these buckets. Yeah, horrendous.
You jump out of the ice bucket and there's a homeless person at the bottom of it.
Oh.
Not far off.
Yeah. Any more news before we move on to our next section?
Well, as we were saying, another.
Luke Hamilton.
Luke Hamilton,
yes.
yes.
Luke Hamilton's on the move.
Not coming to Glasgow though.
No, he's going to Oyonnax.
Yes.
In France Division 2.
Alongside another former Warrior, I believe.
No, but he's playing with Paris Taylor.
Yeah, former Warrior. Paris Taylor.
Was he a Warrior?
Yeah, he was a Warrior.
Why have you on a high pitch?
It's what I do when I'm right.
So bad.
I think the higher you speak, the more right you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hamish Baines signed for Glasgow as well.
Yep.
Yes, so we've now got 4.5 locks if you count Rob Harley.
Yeah.
We'll see if Richie Gray's back holds up to the things. What they say about the artificial pitches? Well, surely that's going to be an issue for Richie's back. I know a lot of people say like guys with knee injuries, like or long-term knee issues, they're like, don't train on hard pitches, just play. Although, I mean, I don't know what the science is on these kind of, the artificial 4G stuff.
I think there's loads of different. You read loads of there's lots of conflicting articles. I think ultimately the jury's out. I mean, I know when my brother played for Tynedale, someone in one of the games, and this was reported in the national press, they got MRSA from an artificial pitch.
Was it really from the pitch though?
Who knows? But a lot of the other players, including my brother, did get ill after playing there.
Oh.
Was it the pitch or the ice buckets?
I want to get that right. Yeah, Superbug. Rugby matches were called off.
Amazing.
They all got called off because a player contracted MRSA, and loads of the other players for Tynedale after that match had unexplained illnesses and fevers.
Oh. Of course, there was the stuff with the Scarlets players moaning about the Scotstoun pitch as well, with the burns from the...
Things so that was just a remarkably hot day.
It was really warm,
they watered the pitch, like they said they'd put 3 times as much water as they would usually do, but it was stinkingly hot that day. I think the
other thing is though that none of the Glasgow Warriors players were reporting injuries, so it might just be soft Welsh skin.
Is there something in that though, around the kind of, obviously again there's an investment being made in that pitch, and we can't be seen to be disparaging our home turf, can we?
Well, I think there's a thing to do with, I think when I read up on it, as far as I can tell, the artificial pitches are fine so long as they're looked after. Yeah. And that's the bottom line with it. If it's maintained, it's properly looked after, there's nothing wrong with an artificial pitch. If you're going to play rugby the way the Scarlets play it, then that's their problem. Glasgow Warriors are adapted
on grass.
You look at Nico Matawala's just adapted his game so he never gets tackled and never has to fall down and take contact.
So, John, did you ever go through to Kilmarnock for a Warriors game?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. That pitch is horrendous.
Also, the seats. There's I'm not a particularly tall man. I'm only about 5'10". I'm 5'10" and a half. So I round up to 5'11".
You're the exact same height as me. There's a factoid for the listeners.
I mean, sitting in there and you're like, your knees were jammed up against the guy in front of his head. It was ridiculous.
There is rumours that they had built the stadium to the specification of Ayrshire men. And
who were all tiny.
Oh, I'm being very cheeky tonight. Yeah. Just for completion, Ian, Taylor Paris was at Glasgow in 2012, 2013, made 2 professional appearances. He also turned out for Dundee HSFB. So yes, he's a former Warrior.
Just
Thank you for that.
It's 2 times more times than Lima Masanga played for Glasgow.
I remember when we signed Masanga and thinking, that's a cracking
It's
signing.
exciting, wasn't it?
It was, but we should know better. Like, any former All Black that signs for Glasgow is going to be Keek. That's the rules.
He had one really good game. He came in as a sub and he took a couple of great high balls and it was like carving up. But it was the same with Corey Flynn. Corey Flynn had like 2 good games.
I remember my story about Corey Flynn was he was warming up with Pat MacArthur before a game. I was covering it for the blog, and they were doing, so they do the main stand at Scotstoun, they do the line out throws. So the guy who's starting is throwing up into the stand, and the ball gets passed back to him, and he was throwing with Pat MacArthur. I think it got to the point where he'd missed him like about 25 times in a row. He just could not hit him. And it wasn't a difficult throw. It was like, you're talking maybe 10 metres at most, and he just couldn't get his head around it. And you're thinking, that's your core job, mate. I'm a bit afraid for what's going to go. The line out went fine in the game, but his warm-up was cataclysmically bad.
He needs that extra pressure to perform.
I say, yeah. No.
We're going to move on. We're going to do our this is our video only section of the podcast. So if you're watching this live, you're watching on YouTube. This isn't on the audio version for reasons we will explain now. Which is, we're going to have a wee look at some YouTube clips. Last week we had a look at Americans reacting to rugby. So we reacted to Americans reacting to rugby, which we thought was quite meta. This week we thought we'd do something a bit more straightforward. So I've asked the guys to pick out their favourite YouTube sporting clips, just stuff you might not have seen before, stuff you've seen before, but you quite like. John, now, unfortunately, John, and I probably should have thought this through beforehand, you chose all of Scotland's tries from 2018.
Great video.
Fantastic video, no doubt about it. However, we are broadcasting live on Facebook. This is probably going to go on YouTube afterwards. And there are significant rights issues with us broadcasting that video. So rather than have our video taken down and getting some sort of legal record, I'm going to...
Getting squidged.
Squidged, yeah, as I believe it's known. We're going to watch something different. We're going to watch Scotland best tries from the 1990s.
Fantastic.
So I've chosen that. So let's have a look. I'm going to see if this will work. If this works this time. So let's have a look and see if that's going to work. That's not going to work if I do it that way. This is all going swimmingly. Right. I'm not going to share the screen then. Right, let's try this one. So your one is decades past, all of Scotland's 1999 tries. Let's see if this works now, John. It's going to work. Here we go.
Oh, he's starting to screen share. It's exciting.
It's exciting. Let's go.
Oh!
Go full screen.
Go full screen.
Just kind of hung on that one there, didn't it?
Go full screen and start buffering.
Working now. Well, that's the 1990 try.
This is when it skips to 1994 because we didn't score any tries in it.
There we go. Scalp over the back of the head. Great job, well done.
Oh, we replay. Look at that. Oh.
The passing's just so clumsy. You forget the balls are so bloody heavy.
Superb.
There we go. We're just going to watch this on. Is this just on a loop now? This is it. This is Scotland in the 90s. We've seen this 3 times now.
Scotland's whole decade is
Scotland's one try.
This one try.
Is this the hard one?
Oh, here we go. Here's another one. Oh, Doddy on the rampage. That's a fantastic pass.
Good hands. Oh, smoked him. Foot and touch though.
No TMO in these days, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, what a finish. We skipped to 1995, so there was no good tries between 1990 and 1995.
That was even worse than I thought.
Here we go. 1999.
Back when Ireland were still rubbish.
Much better passing here, over the top.
Oh, look at that step.
Smoked him. There you go. I don't even know who the Irish 10 is, and I'm like angry at him. I just don't like him. It's just that shirt.
There's Gregor.
Oh, beautiful. Oh my, look at that step. Unorthodox.
Acres of space. What's going on here? Keith Woods on the charge. This could be an intercept.
I think so. Oh, big hit. Oh, put the rocking. Oh.
Oh.
Van Gregor.
Oh, this is a cracking try, this one.
Absolutely cracking.
This is an absolutely cracking try.
Absolutely fantastic try. Still 1999. So this has got me. We're getting towards the end of the video now. I can't believe there was nothing happened between 1995 and 1999. That one try against Wales.
Duncan Hodge. Is that? Oh, this is the. Is this? Spoiler alert. I think we score from kickoff here.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
this
Gordon Leslie 12 seconds.
Yeah, we do.
Fastest try in Six Nations history, I believe.
Although it is a bit
remember-
strange when you see him lining up with the tee to do the kickoff,
Yeah.
and you're thinking, he's going for goal from halfway. That's a big kick.
He's going to Geordie Barry.
So there we go. That was that one. So that was good. That was interesting. Not what we were expecting.
Well, I predicted no tries from 1990 to 1994, so slightly worse actually. But no, some cracking tries.
It was good to watch. I mean, I think we were better than when we read the Townsend autobiography. We were better in the 90s than I think people remember. I think Scotland really got bad until about 2001.
2000 was pretty bad.
99 on.
We won the
after
Calcutta
that.
Cup in 2000.
Yeah, but we could beat off Italy.
We got horsed by Italy away.
That's
well.
true. Small details. Look, we're still the reigning Five Nations champions.
Bigger picture.
I know. So the next one, Ian, this is yours. This is Evan Longoria. This
Yeah,
is
not
quite
to be confused with Eva Longoria.
No,
It's
I
just
don't
what
think
I say.
they're not related, are they?
I believe not, no.
So this is I'll go full screen on this straight away. See if we can make this work.
After last week's escapades, I'm surprised you gave Ian internet.
Evan, there's been a lot of changes this offseason for your team. How do you feel your chances are in the AL East?
I mean, I love our chances. You know, it's been. Oh! Yeah, keep it on the field. Yeah, keep it on the field.
I love that little kind of guys keep it on the field at the end.
Yeah. So you guys suck. But when,
What a
reflexes, man, reflexes. No one's even shouted Heeds.
I mean, I was wondering where the shout at Heeds was actually.
That's that. Do you think they shout that in America?
Well, they will now that they've seen it in this podcast.
Heeds. In America, we should do this properly in a YouTube comment. Let us know in the comments. Do you guys shout Heeds in America?
Don't forget to click the bell.
Tag DC Glory in that. We'll see what happens with it.
That's that.
That is unbelievable, that bit of skill. I'll let you choose another one though, Ian, because that was a really that was quite a short one. So we've got this from you as well, which I've got. I did have a sneak peek at this one. This is quite good. So that's working. Let's see if this works. This is Stephen Curry long shot buzzer mix.
This man's obscene.
A good shot. Green weaving, trying to get the shot up. No call that way. Curry swings it the other way. And he got it! What a turnaround!
So these are all kind of like on the buzzer shots.
A miraculous shot for Curry from half court. It's gone! He banks it in!
Are you kidding me?
He made one at the end of the first that didn't count.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
Three-pointer number 200 on the season for Steph Curry, the first NBA player ever with 200 threes, 4 straight years, and he does it in style, banking it in to end the half. Toyota halftime coming up.
We show you the end then.
Beat the clock from midcourt. Curry, good! He banked it home! Again, we are watching a player who is otherworldly.
Something or someone has blessed him with a golden touch.
2 seconds to work with. Curry from midcourt. It's good! Don't act surprised. The rim. Curry has time. 3 seconds. Curry from half court. Oh! He puts it in at the buzzer.
How many times we've seen this guy make shots like this? The best shooter that this game has ever seen. Pulls up from half court and knocks it down. Mama, there goes that.
The fans are also obviously aware of Paul George being 1 point away. From the half-court play.
Curry hits with 2 and 6.
It's like most of them as well are just like proper swoosh. Like,
I know, that's crazy stuff.
I'd read the guy that's the sort of head of EA Sports Development. He was like, see, when we were trying to do stats, it's like we can't, like, they have algorithms, right? You know, they're obviously very technical. They're like, we can't actually see how much better at shooting he is than anyone else in the entire game. And
Is that because of where he's shooting from then? Is it because he's not shooting from somewhere that they would pick up on?
No, it's not. He's just a ridiculously good shooter. I've heard one of his warm-up, he will do 100 throws from the free-throw line, and if he misses one, he has to start back from 0 and just keeps going until he hits 100 in a row. Then sort of conversely, I've heard about, Thomas Muller, the Bayern Munich footballer. Like, they went, he's not actually particularly good at anything, but he just seems to score a lot of goals. His sort of positional sense is so good. You know, he's not a great passer, he's not a great finisher. There was a hilarious attempt at a corner I've seen him do. But he just seems to be in the right place at the right time. He's...
I think that was the thing with Pep Guardiola, that he wasn't a brilliant footballer. He was just a very intelligent footballer.
Guardiola was an incredibly good passer, but he was slow as a week in jail.
20 passing in Champman 0102. Free transfer, him and Taribo West.
So that was a classic. I haven't played that in a while. Might go back out.
You can get it. You can get it on a. So there's plenty of good free. It's available as abandonware now, and you can download it and get it battered in. I personally loved that buzzer video, and just it was the beautiful American commentary. I think every sport should come with American commentary from now on.
Do you remember when Scotland played the USA in Houston?
Yeah, and Finn Russell's debut.
Yeah, and it was broadcast live on the Daily Record. And they just got the American commentators through it. That was very exciting.
It was at like 4 a.m. over here, and the commentators were amazing. They'd just done. I think the All Blacks had played in the States just previously, so they had like some reference points, but there's like compilations online of just some of the absolute carnage they spoke. I think because it's Finn Russell's debut, actually, there's a video of Finn Russell's amazing debut with Scotland, and it's got the American commentary over the top. They're talking about the line out, and they're saying, "Oh, he's taking the throw in now. Not sure if this is a normal part of the game or things like that." You know, it's brilliant.
There was a couple of times they call it the end zone.
He's
in the end zone.
Bit of end zone. Oh yeah, Finn Russell here with the lateral.
Oh, the lateral. They
Oh,
love
the
that.
lateral, brilliant. So yeah,
They're in the Doritos sponsored danger zone now.
My one is, well, mine was an American sport as well. I quite like NFL. I don't follow it that closely, but I do really enjoy it. One of my favorite players is Marshawn Lynch. So I've got two videos. People who don't know who Marshawn Lynch is, I think he's probably one of the NFL players I've seen who could very easily play rugby, and here is why. So this is Marshawn Lynch's top 5 runs, and just this is unbelievable stuff. Lots of American commentary here as well, of course.
Got some suddenness and some quickness to him in the hole. Good footwork. First and goal.
Lynch. Woodson was in there, then he was stood up, and look at him. He never quits. He never quits.
That's them all.
He got in.
Yep.
That, my friends, is a bulldozing 3-yard touchdown run. Marshawn Lynch. What effort.
Looks slightly like you looked like Iranian. Like
well, we talk about
like
a unique running style with the running back. He's so strong in his lower body. You talk about yards after contact. Now watch his teammates. Look at Carpenter. Look at the offensive line. They all come running in, and they push him into the end zone.
And that is legal.
Another way to say that is legal, because that obviously never happens in American football, so they have to point that out.
To clarify, defensive got to get up and round a wee bit.
From the 2-yard line, straight ahead is Lynch. Marshawn Lynch still going. All the way up and still going to the 35, and he's not down yet. Oh, what, son? The 45-yard line.
You were the Carolinas.
Back, kill him. First and goal back at the 15. Lynch not going to get anything. Well, maybe second effort. He comes out the back of it, and he's in. Touchdown.
Unbelievable.
8th straight game that he scored a touchdown. I don't know how he came out the backside of that pile. What a run.
Magic.
Very reminiscent, not as long as the run in the playoffs a year ago against New Orleans, but the effort was the same. He ran through the arm tackle of Jamar Chaney, pushed the
Here's Lynch. Oh, some high stepping and some shifty maneuvering, and Peterson tries to strip it. Stay in bounds, because if he stayed in bounds, he's going to go all the way. Marshawn Lynch, 79 yards, unless he stepped out, and you saw Peterson come over, not to make the tackle, but just try to strip him.
It's not quite the earthquake run, but it's close. They've got 3 defensive linemen right in the center. This is all Marshawn Lynch. And Peterson, one of the fastest guys, goes to try and strip the ball out. Rashad Johnson, it's unbelievable. Honestly, it's unbelievable. I don't care if he ever talks to the media. Watching that guy play is remarkable.
Here's the key right here. Right foot in clearly. Left in. Right in. And off he goes to the longest run of his career.
One of the greatest plays I've ever seen right there. An individual effort. Sick. Literally, physically, whatever you want to call that, sick. That is absolutely spectacular, and he does it all the time.
He's got nice cleats.
From Westfield in Seattle, it's wild card Saturday. The New Orleans Saints against the Seattle Seahawks.
Plain black.
Crowd silent now, as opposed to when the Saints have the ball. Oh, look at this run! What a run! Marshawn Lynch still on his feet. Has blockers now. He's dancing his way for the touchdown.
He breaks the tackle of Shanley, runs through Sharper, runs through Adele, runs through Jabari Greer. Get off me, he says to Tracy Porter. Look all the way down the field, Hasselback, all the offensive linemen.
First and goal at the 6. Breeze has the pass complete for the touchdown.
The kick was way too hard.
And the young Seahawks with their first-year coach, Pete Carroll.
So that's Marshawn Lynch.
He was pretty handy. I mean, like, my one issue with American football is that it takes about 4 years to do an hour's worth of game. And you don't get Prince or Bruce Springsteen playing at halftime all the time.
Every game that should happen.
I think that I can only watch the NFL in highlight form because it's quite exciting to watch when you see plays like that. But I can't sit through a whole game because there's so many adverts and so many stoppages. But that when it's good, it's good. Now the reason I wanted you to see Marshawn Lynch was just to know who he is, because did you know that Marshawn Lynch once turned up in Houston and Paisley?
Really?
Yep. Because he eats Skittles during games. He is the American Finn Russell. He's the NFL equivalent of Finn Russell. He eats Skittles during games, and he then got sponsored by Skittles as a result of this. So to promote the Super Bowl in Houston, Skittles sent him to Houston and Paisley. Do you want to see what happened when Marshawn Lynch went to Houston and Paisley? There are 2 videos.
I used to live in Houston and Paisley, so I would love to see this.
Let's have a look at this. So this is Marshawn Lynch. Here we go. Here's Marshawn Lynch in Houston and Paisley.
Scotland.
Deep fried Skittles.
That's a custom-made adult BMX called the Beast.
That's the backwards.
Oh, wow. Welcome to Scotland.
What are you doing on a Skittles bike?
It's not a Skittles bike. It's a Skittles bag connected to my bike. We got the Super Bowl going on. You familiar with that?
I know this, yeah, obviously.
Oh, you know that?
It's so popular.
Really? I ain't seen no castle before.
That was built about 1160 or so.
Built when?
1160.
So you know it's in Houston, right?
Oh yeah, I heard.
Yeah, not this Houston, but the other Houston. I heard this Houston was the first Houston, though.
Oh yeah, no.
Little interesting fact that I heard. 11:16. That sounds like what time it is right now.
Hey there.
What's up with it? Well, what you got on that thing? I don't know about that. So where I'm from, like we don't wear those. Where the Hey, them things real, bro. The Super Bowl is gonna be in Houston this year, right? Houston, Texas. So I thought I would come out to Scotland, Houston, to find out if y'all knew about the Super Bowl going on in Houston, Texas. And it sounds like you really excited about it.
I get it.
You know what? I ain't gonna say I make clothes, but I do a little bit of fashion.
I can email you some designs, and then you can sort of see what you want.
Emails, I ain't gonna give you my email. They filming right now, but we just gonna throw you a couple more. You feel what I'm talking about?
Sounds good.
Hey, man, I'm a bagpiper, man.
Come and join our band. Come on.
It's 17th century.
I got my good eye on you, one. Hey, man, I just ran into one of you in the, I don't know if y'all call them woods or, I don't know where I was at. Just remember, Beast Mode done slid through Scotland. He gave you something so you can make sure that you enjoy the game while you're watching it, too. I wouldn't think all the way out here y'all would know anything about.
Are you kidding? People stay up until ridiculous o'clock in the morning, take
That's
days
a
off
time?
work.
Ridiculous o'clock?
Ridiculous o'clock.
But if you get Skittles into all of their hands, then they be game ready.
Okay, I'll remember that one.
Yeah, man, that's almost like what I seen when them Warriors jumped out on me. They was game ready, but they didn't know I had a game plan for them.
That's like the best thing ever, Skittles in Super Bowl.
Hell yeah, put it together and let it rock, baby. Houston, it's been real. Y'all got some real history around this.
That is amazing.
I have a sort of, American football and rugby related story. Mine being Gavin Hastings was kicking for the Claymores when they had the NFL Europe. Yeah. So
we should do a podcast on that sometime.
Yes.
I was in what's it called? The club up Sauchiehall Street that was called the Velvet Rooms. Can't remember what it's called now. But I mean, we're talking about 20 years ago when I was a young lad.
I'm much younger than you as well, mate. So.
Aye, man. You'd still be watching Teletubbies, mate. No, I'd gone in there with a couple of mates, and just as we were leaving, I'd used the facilities before waiting for the long taxi journey home. And you mind there was another Scottish guy that played for the Claymores called Scott Cooper. Well, I ended up urinating beside him. Or those sort of like, is that dude? And then he's doing the washing hands thing, and I was like, mate, are you Scott Cooper? And he's like, aye. And then he was there with two guys who played for the Patriots, New England Patriots, who had just won the Super Bowl. So I was like, do you guys play for the Claymores? Like, no, we play for the Patriots, and they had their Super Bowl rings on, like these big, the big. It was like classy sovereign rings, basically. I was like, oh, I mean, I used to like a wee bit of American football when it was on Channel 4.
Yeah.
Davey Gary, was it Gary Newborn? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny hearing you talking about a conversation you had in the Loos way before people went and had conversations with you in the Loos and asked you, are you that guy from the Scottish Rugby podcast?
That's never happened to me. That's only happened to you.
I know, I just wanted to drop that.
Because you're hella famous.
I've got one more video of Marshawn Lynch to show you before we end this segment. This is also filmed in Paisley. This is Marshawn Lynch doing, someone caught him doing a wheelie.
Nice.
On his bike. So here we go. This is unbelievable. Here we go. Dodges the bus.
Oh! Multi-million-pound superstar almost wiped out by a McGill's bus.
Plain chicken with a McGill's.
I can categorically confirm as well that part of Paisley is not the prettiest. You're right. You are right next to the Coates Memorial Hall, but there's some fairly dodgy bits around that area. So yeah. Having him cycling about was probably, there would have been a lot of bodyguards nearby. And I can also confirm, so Houston Paisley is, you're being rough on Houston here, Cam. Houston is quite far outside of Paisley. Admittedly, I did walk home from Paisley once after a night out to Houston, but it is still not, we're quite far away from Paisley.
So who's that? Am I being harsh on Paisley or Houston?
Houston is a very affluent little bit of Scotland.
Just for sure.
Yes. Houston is former, possibly current abode of a certain Alistair McCoist. He also they owned one of the pubs in the village, the Fox and the Hound, which had a very good whiskey selection actually.
Oh, there we go. Good local knowledge, John. I can recommend people looking up Marshawn Lynch on YouTube, especially his press conferences, because he doesn't do press. He does stuff like the Skittles things. He's famous for, before one of the Super Bowls, he kept getting fined for turning up to press conferences and not speaking, and he answered every single question. I'm just here so I don't get fined. Absolutely outstanding.
Which is less a-holy than what Eddie Jones usually responds to.
Right, let's close this up now. Let's do Hands in the Ruck. John, we'll start with you, and then Ian can think of something because I stole his too.
That's it. You're giving him a wee bit of thinking time. That's quite nice of you. So I'm going to have a wee bit of a moan about. So as we've said previously in this episode, we've talked about the kind of amateur rugby game coming back and the roadmap to seeing some rugby again. And I'm starting to get on certain forums and certain online platforms, there's a growing kind of irritation with the lack of information that's been provided with regards to the international game. And, people moaning about why has nobody told me when this, when will information about the Scotland-Wales rescheduled Six Nations game, when will I get this information? When will my ticket be valid? When will I be able to buy tickets, organise this, organise that? And it's not a good look. When you read people talking about that, when, we all know what's going on in the world out there. We all know the numbers involved in what's going on in the world out there. And you've got people moaning about a bloody rugby ticket. it really, really sticks with me, and it makes me quite disappointed in people that's, you know, I appreciate rugby's a huge part of all our lives, and, you know, I want just as much as everybody to be able to go and watch a game of rugby or to see some rugby on the television, but there's bigger things going on just now, and just having a wee bit of kind of dignity about it would be really quite sensible, I think.
Yeah, I think, and you know, we all want to see rugby back. We all want to start watching some, you know, rugby that isn't, you know, in another part of the world. We all want to see the players that we know and love playing. We all want to see international rugby back, because God knows it funds the rest of it. But you're right. I mean, and even if, like we said in the last episode, even if international rugby comes back, there's going to be nobody in the stadium watching it, or very few people in the stadium watching it. And the idea of, I mean, even the idea of kind of a Scottish team travelling to Wales, or a Welsh team travelling to England, and even, you know, before you even get started with getting the teams over to Ireland and France, those are big obstacles to overcome. I mean, you know, I was thinking the other day, even, you know, logistically, Berwick getting over the border to play Duns. Do you know what I mean? you got two different, you know, completely different systems, literally, you know, a few miles over the border, different rules, different categories. So actually, you know, arranging, that's just a local game. Arranging big international matches requires a lot. Logistically, requires a lot. So I think you're right. I think it needs to be given time. There will be announcements. As somebody pointed out on the blog, one of the comments, and I think it's the Smidge pointed out, Scotland will want to play this autumn because they need to get Duhan van der Merwe and Ollie Kebble and Jaco van der Vault.
Lesser extent Van der Vault, yeah.
Yeah, tied down.
Ireland will be wanting to get James Lowe as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, where did that one come from? What an absolute crime that they've managed to like get him Irish qualified, by the way. I remember seeing him in Super Rugby and thinking, that guy looks amazing, and by the way, I bet he's got Scottish blood somewhere in him. And then Leinster going hoover him up. Disgusting.
So, Christ, as well, like, once the Pro 14 starts back up, mind who Munster have signed?
Yeah, basically the Springboks.
Aye, how have they got that much money? What's going on there? Like, we're Brassic, right? We can't even afford to sign, like I imagine Nakaraba's taking a massive pay cut.
Yeah, you would think so.
We've got the bare bones of a squad, and they're like, all right, we can still pay Snyman and Dale Endy. And they've both been playing Japan, so, you know, they weren't on buttons there.
Yeah.
Well,
you know, there's something to be said about the location that Munster play in, and potential. Oh, he's just making faces. Is he back on mute? Yes, I'm sure that Munster will be okay in the coming years, financially.
See, man, I genuinely fail to understand how, like, Ireland, who have a smaller national stadium than us, how do they have that much money in that union to pay for 4 pro teams? Not only that, pay all the Leinster players enough. Guys like James Ryan, Johnny Sexton, they're not on buttons, are they? And then they can then afford to pay, like DLND, Steinman, World Cup winning Springboks. Why are we skint? And why are Scotland and Wales skint?
It's because we don't have any international referees, mate.
That's where the big money is.
That's where the money is. That's just think of all the money that comes in when you know you've got Clancy coming up. You're going to fund Ireland. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, you know, I suppose they must. Maybe the rent rugby pay. Well,
that's it as well. Yeah, I mean, half of Dublin is rugby residents.
Rugby infrastructure.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Irish economy is basically World Rugby and Apple. So,
D4 postcode, that's where all the World Rugby money goes.
See, I only recently found out, because I've used the term D4 quite a lot, obviously talking about the D4 conspiracy, and I've only just found out what D4 meant. I just thought it just was some, like, I just took it as a derogatory way of talking about the Irish rugby institutions, but no, I've only just realised it's the postcode.
That's something like Ireland doesn't have like one of my old jobs. I used to have to send out letters to foreign addresses, so I'd have to go on this
You're
website.
a postman, Ian.
No. I was altering addresses to make sure that this post was reached. And Ireland never had postcodes. It's only Dublin that's got postcodes.
Nice, smart.
Well, that's it. You write to someone in Ireland and just write Dave from
Steve on that farm down there by Cork.
And the postman will go,
Steve. No worries, Stevie.
Again, showing your talent for accents, Ian.
Accents. That's a beautiful New Zealand accent there, Ian.
I know loads of folk from Cork.
Go on then, Ian. You go with your hands. Have you managed to think of a hands in the rucker? Or have I stolen them both?
In the last half hour, no. You.
Me stealing yours. All right, that's fair.
Yellow
card. In the ledger. Mine is this week. I've been having a lot of fun on Twitter this week, taking part in what some people have called, and those people are on the wrong side, the rugby culture wars. For a lot of people might not know, because these things only happen on Twitter, and Twitter is a bit of a bubble. It's not real life. It's actually like a computer game. That's the only way to get through it. Score points for every time someone famous mutes you for haranguing them for being racist. The main thing that's come out, I think, is there's been a few things over the last few weeks that have annoyed me greatly. But the big thing recently is Exeter Chiefs for Change. It's a fan-led campaign to get, and by fan-led I mean fans of Exeter Chiefs, fan-led campaign to get them to drop the racist branding, which is a Native American in full headdress. They also, I understand, have a mascot who is a caricature of a Native American with a headdress. They all turn up to matches wearing Native American headdresses, and they do a dance called the Tomahawk Chop, which all sounds like something that should happen in the 1980s, but it's not. It's happening. Well, it's not happening right now because of coronavirus, but it is happening until recently down in Exeter every match day and at away games too. Now, this group of fans have said, look, there's no problem with being called the Exeter Chiefs. You were called the Exeter Chiefs for lots of years. The problem you've got is the branding. Native American groups in America have talked about the problems with having their culture appropriated for sports teams. The Redskins, Washington Redskins, have just announced that they're dropping their branding, but only after Coca-Cola, and I think Nike refused to stock any of their shirts anymore, and Coca-Cola refused to sponsor them. So they've, or might even Pepsi even. So they're going. But this is, Native Americans have said, we don't want this happening. Please don't do it. The fans have said they've all said they've worn the shirts. They've done it for years, and now is the time to think about making the change. The response to that has been for some people to absolutely lose their head and decide to die on some very strange hills.
Your dad protects statues.
Aye, your dad protects statues, indeed. The counter argument to this, because balance is important, even when I don't think there should be balance in this argument, but there you go, is another group of fans have set up their own petition. They say that they are honouring the Native Americans. Like Ian's face there is a picture. They are honouring the Native Americans by having the imagery and you doing the tomahawk chop and having a Native American mascot dance around the stadium. I would say that, I don't know, have you asked any Native Americans if they wanted to be honoured in that way? Because the answer is categorically no if you do any Googling and reading. Just while Ian's got his mic on mute there. The other argument is that they don't really seem to have any other argument other than we've done it for ages. The other argument I've heard, which was on the Egg Chasers Rugby podcast, I'm going to say who it was because it's them I've been having arguments with this week on Twitter, is that this is part of woke culture and cancel culture, and that we shouldn't be easily offended. I think Leon Blood Mud was talking about this yesterday, and he said, "Well, we're not. It's not that we're offended. It's just that we're pointing out because I'm not Native American. I'm nothing to be offended by. I'm not really offended on their behalf. I'm just pointing out that that they are offended and that it's wrong. That's fine. It's not. We can't sit here in silence and say, it's fine not to be racist, but then to be anti-racist, you have to call this stuff out and say it's wrong. And there aren't many Native American people caught, in Exeter to call it out, and we shouldn't have to wait for them to call it out. And it's fine to say this is wrong. So if you go and find the petition, please sign it. I think there's some suggestion that Exeter Chiefs are going to make an announcement about this soon. I don't know whether that'll be a positive announcement or not, but I think some of the stuff that came out of this, I think there was one was that this is somehow cultural Marxism. Which was a pretty special argument. The other one was today was trying to. Somebody had posted from the American Psychological Association had done a research on this and the psychological impact of Native American imagery and marketing in the. On Native Americans, and the study showed that it had a negative effect, unsurprisingly. And the response to that was they haven't used proper citations and it's not a properly well-researched document. It was on the American Psychological Association, who are the largest association of psychologists in America. Now, I'm not saying they're infallible by any stretch, but it was a peer-reviewed document. And they said the other response was, well, some of the documents being posted by Exeter Chiefs for Change, they're not properly academic documents that have been peer reviewed. And when I pointed out that one of them was, we got no response. What the response was, when was the last time you played rugby? My response was, why does that matter? To which it says, it doesn't matter. I just want to know. You can tell. I said, how can you tell? I'm going to mutiny you now, was the response to that. So that's been immense fun. But there is, it's not just the Exeter Chiefs for Change thing. There has been there is an element, I think, of rugby that doesn't want to change. And Egg Chase is a part of that. Andy Good is another part of that. Andy Good, who this week put on a tweet. Ian's really enjoying the fact that he can mute his mic but still make faces at me now. We're doing this by video. Andy Good, who tweeted this week, which it was racist what he said. He said, I don't understand why people react the way they do when they're pulled over by the police. If I was pulled over, I would just act normally, which is in response to the two black British athletes who were pulled over by the police in London this week. I think if you're denying people's experiences that they're telling you that they have been pulled over repeatedly for no other reason other than the colour of their skin, that is racist. To not acknowledge your own experience of saying, well, I've never been pulled over by the police, but I'm perfectly aware of why that is. It's because I'm white. Ian was pulled over by the police once, but that's because he drove the wrong way up a dual carriageway. That's fair enough. That's going to get pulled over by the police for that, Ian.
I did not drive the wrong way. Didn't the wrong carriageway. I skipped lanes over the what they call the chevrons. I don't even know.
The chevrons, yeah.
What are they called? That's probably your first failure there, buddy.
But that's going to get you pulled over by the police, though, isn't it, Ian?
Yeah, right.
But you got a friendly chat.
Actually, no. See the.
Actually, no.
One of the cops is all right. The other one was a bit of a bell end. But I acted nice. He's like, sorry, mate. But the incident you're talking about there, I can't remember their name. British athletes, is it Bianca Williams, her name? And then her boyfriend, who's a Portuguese 400-metre runner. They said that they'd only been pulled over. Not only been pulled over. Ever since they bought a £60,000 Mercedes, they've been pulled over 20 times in the last 2 or 3 years. Right? So if Andy Good is driving down the road in a 60 grand Mercedes, he's not getting pulled over, is he? And it's not even just that, it's just the way that they're dealt with, the way they're spoken to. Even just before that, a week before that, I'd seen on Channel 4 News, there was a guy who'd been on Channel 4 News talking about sort of systemic racism on the news, and then on his way back from the interview, he got pulled over by the cops who smashed his window in. And I've seen the video. mean, like I wrote a rather offensive reply. Well, I had swear words to when you'd mentioned this, and I said, "Look, I've deleted Andy Good. I deleted Egg Chasers a while ago, and I've booted a lot of people who I used to regard as friends off my Facebook because they just." You can't argue with it. You can't reason with them. You can say, "Look, here's these statistics. Here's this. Here's this," and they go, "Aye, but blah, blah, you know, all lives matter kind of crowd." You've never experienced that discrimination because you are not that kind of people. You are not a black person. You don't get treated the same way, and the stats are, the statistics are there. I think black people are like something like 6 times more likely to be pulled over, 8 times more likely to be stopped and searched by police.
Mm.
These are just standout facts. You can't argue with that.
Well, Ashton Hewitt, who's a black player plays for Dragons Rugby, he retweeted Andy Good's tweet and said, "It's pretty hard not to get frustrated when you're stopped and searched because you're black." And Ellis Genge replied and said he's been pulled over twice in the last month, and the reason being there's a lot of breaking and entering in the area.
Right, and Ellis Genge he's not exactly low profile, is he? The guy scored a winning try against Scotland just recently. This is definitely the same thing. Do you think Owen Farrell's been pulled over recently for
driving without arms?
That's quite good. No, but it's just this failure to acknowledge that these things are happening from people who are not in that category group. And like I said, I've stopped following Andy Good because of that kind of thing. It's not the first time you said stuff that I highly disapprove of. Same with the Egg Chasers. I've chucked them a while ago. And it is this complete failure to acknowledge that someone who you don't experience that, they do, you don't. What gives you the right to then call it out and say, "Oh wait, well, it's just nonsense"? I've had issues with cops before. I'm not an anti-cop person, right? But I've had, a wee while ago, night out in town, right? We'd seen a homeless guy getting beaten up. So I ran around the corner to go and find a cop. It just so happened as I did that, a friend of mine was getting arrested by a cop for arguing with his wife and apparently getting in a fight with someone. The cop was being a bit of a twat to me. He kept on telling me off. And I was like, I was standing miles away. I was like, "Mate, thing is, I've seen a guy getting assaulted around the corner. That's all. But I'm not going to say ACAB, because they're not. They've got a job to do, and it's a hard job, especially on a Friday or Saturday night in Glasgow. But with stuff like this, you looked at the footage of the athletes that were pulled over. The cops are very, very aggressive. They stand there with their batons drawn. It's like, just tell them to get the car, man.
Yeah. And it's not. I don't think it's not. It's not just the Black Lives Matter stuff as well. It's with the Egg Chasers in particular. The other run-in I had with them was because they'd retweeted an article that took a very serious look at Delilah and Welsh fans singing Delilah, and the fact is, effectively, it's a song about domestic violence. I think Mike Bubbins has said there are other songs that you could sing, other Tom Jones songs you could sing. I think we said last week, you can sing. I've got an album of Johnny Cash murder ballads. They're good songs. They're interesting songs to listen to. No one's saying you should stop listening to Delilah. It's just you should stop singing in a rugby stadium. Is effectively the argument, which is and it's fine to kind of I don't have an issue with people putting a counter argument to that, whatever that might be. But they retweeted the article with a laughing face and said, "Oh, this is woke culture again. What should we change the name of other things to?" And I say, I can't really. My point to them was, you can't laugh at someone making a point about domestic violence. Engage with the arguments by all means for not singing the song anymore. They don't laugh at someone making a legitimate point about domestic violence. And then I got all sorts of things about what my motivation was for saying that. It was just to virtue signaling because I wanted to look good. It's like, no, it's because I didn't agree with what you were saying, so I made it my point.
There's such an arrogance, isn't there, that comes with some of the people you have to engage with, or you end up engaging with around these topics. The absolute arrogance and belief that right, so I'm like you, Cammy. I believe that in this instance, my view on this is right. And I think history will probably show that we were on the right side of history here. Whether it does or doesn't, that's kind of by the by. There's just such an arrogance about people who believe that, as Ian said, their experience means that they can be judge, jury, and executioner in all scenarios. Like, I know exactly what is the right thing at this instance, and it's a certain demographic. And I think, sadly, I'm going to be controversial here, but I think rugby does attract a lot of people like that, and it's to the detriment of our game. We're meant to be promoting a game that's inclusive, respectful, diverse, the gentleman's game, or a thug's game played by gentlemen, but ultimately we're not promoting that if we stand by and let people say these things that, it doesn't take much to think what people are saying is racist. The Exeter Chief stuff is racist. Sorry, guys. Sorry, people who disagree. It is racist. The whole Black Lives Matter stuff. See if you come back and say all lives matter. That's also racist. Deal with it.
Yeah, they're just obfuscating. And the thing see, what I would love to see at the Millennium Stadium is, rather than singing Delilah, why don't they sing It's Not Unusual and do the Carlton dance?
Yeah.
Yes.
That'd be awesome.
Or it is unusual, and then start referencing Scotland's tries at the Millennium Stadium.
I think the other thing as well is a lot of people come back and say, "Oh, it's got nothing to do with rugby." I think the problem is that rugby doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists within a wider society, and rugby has to deal with these issues. I mean, rugby has to deal with issues of race. I mean, the fact, Scotland's the representation of sort of non-white players for Scotland is pretty poor, and it has been pretty poor over the years. And I would suggest that's probably because of where the game has been promoted.
Yes,
and also not only that, just working class players.
Yeah. You're right. So from different social backgrounds, we had who was it saying recently in the Offside Line interview how difficult you'd find it breaking into professional rugby because if you didn't go to the right school.
I remember part of the whole Keith Russell affair was there's an alleged comment from Mark Dawson about maybe growing the game in the East End of Glasgow. It's like, we don't want those kind of people playing it. Yeah, it's like, what about Rory Hughes, mate? No, I mean, there's loads of good talented athletes, but they just don't get picked. And the game of rugby is not promoted in schools enough. I like the school I went to, despite the fact that I'm in Cambuslang, and the school was literally about 200 yards away from Cambuslang Rugby Club. You could go to football trials, but there was anything about rugby trials that I saw in the PE department. I know a couple of guys that did do that. I know a few guys actually, and then played for Cambuslang. Even guys who've like my mate James, he trained Johnny Gray, and he knows Johnny Gray quite well and stuff like that. But he, we don't have enough of that kind of thing. Like, I mean, Johnny Gray seems to come from quite a decently well-to-do family, and this is the kind of issue about this. We're not encouraging the game. We're not encouraging people to play the game, regardless of your background status or whatever. I mean, rugby's an expensive game. I think, John, was it last week you said there was that someone was looking at like $3,000 in order to join a club?
No, that wasn't me saying that.
Oh,
no, that was someone. I thought you were going to reference. I had a rant last week about a situation where people were being excluded from a rugby club due to their financial background. And I think we had a kind of private chat, Ian, where you said something along the lines of, if you can't afford the blazer, you're not allowed to play, which was pretty telling, actually. So, but I think I mean, there's a much wider issue here, and I think we could probably fill 5 podcasts with this, couldn't we?
We could. I think the main thing to take away is, rugby doesn't exist in a vacuum. There are issues happening in the world right now, and rugby needs to deal with that, and that means fans dealing with it as well. And I'm 100% confident that we're on the right side of this argument. I'm sure people on the other side, they believe they are on the right side of it as well. But I'm pretty sure that in the longer term, that being respectful to everybody and acknowledging people's experiences is probably the right way to go. So,
do you know what? See, if we're not on the right side of the argument, we'll be respectful about that, and we'll pay our dues in time.
We hell. Double down.
Double down.
Double down. That's it. Yep. That was me trying to show personal growth there as someone who tends to double down when I've made mistakes, particularly when I'm hosting live podcasts.
Yes. So anyway, it's a good point to leave it. Hope you've enjoyed it. We've had people with us for the whole way through this. Well, it's been some endurance test, that.
This has run on for a bit, hasn't it?
It has. Oh, my card's full, so that means I've stopped recording. We stopped recording on my on the card, so I'm going to have to go back through the audio on this. I've got backup. This is great.
2 hours and 8 minutes. Oof.
Wow.
Christ.
There we go. So a 2-hour epic long podcast. Thank you for joining us. Join us next week. Not next week. In fact, 2 weeks. I'm on holiday next week. I'm going away.
Do you know what that means, Cam?
What?
It's time for the troops to take over again.
No, I think we'll have a break next week.
No, George Wilson.
That'll be a hard no.
So we're going to have a wee break next week, and then we're going to come back on the 26th of July. Have I got the date right? 24th? 24th of July. Well done. It's like I've organised this with our big club dinner. So I hope you all, and Dougie Donnelly himself, I hope you all join us for that. For the meantime, though, it is goodbye from me and goodbye from John and Ian.
Night, folks.
Good night, troops.